The spreadsheet glowed under the conference room lights. I was sitting in the quarterly review, listening to my boss, Sean, present the financial summary to the executive team. Everything felt normal, routine even. Then I saw it. A line item in the Q2 report. The numbers didn't match the source documents I'd reviewed last week. My stomach tightened. I raised my hand carefully, politely. "I think there's an error," I said, pointing to the discrepancy. "The approval date on that entry doesn't align with the actual filing date." The room went silent. Sean's smile froze. For just a fraction of a second, I saw panic flash across his face. Then it was gone, replaced by a sharp, controlled expression. "Interesting observation," he said, his voice tight. "But I think we're fine here." A few colleagues laughed nervously, looking away. I nodded, said nothing more, and let it slide. The meeting continued. But something had shifted. I could feel it in the air, a weight I didn't yet understand. 15 minutes after we left the conference room, my email pinged. "Restructuring your responsibilities. Effective immediately. See me after lunch." The message was professional, brief, cold. And I noticed something else. HR was copied on the email. A silent witness to the first move against me. I stared at my screen, my hands shaking slightly. I had no idea this was just the beginning. After that day, everything changed. My desk felt smaller. Invitations vanished from my calendar. My projects were quietly reassigned. My boss's emails became formal, referencing me in third person. "Tell her to update the files." I studied every interaction like a puzzle. Timing, tone, pauses. Everything became a clue. I started keeping notes on my computer. Then I found it. Working late, cross-checking quarterly data, I noticed the discrepancy. Numbers in the Q2 report didn't match the original documents. Not by accident, by design. Approvals were missing. Dates had been changed. Someone had altered this deliberately. This was intentional. My gut told me Sean was involved. I saved everything, labeling it meticulously with timestamps. That night I realized I was afraid. But I was also determined. Then my email pinged. A message from the director. "Need you to review Q2 finances as part of our annual audit. Can you have a summary ready by Friday?" He wanted me to look at the exact place where the inconsistencies started. He didn't know what he was asking me to find. But I was about to find it anyway. Late one evening, the office was empty except for fluorescent humming. I sat at my desk, cross-checking archived approvals with recent reports. Dates didn't align. Versions were missing. Files had been deleted. Someone had tried to hide this. Every discrepancy was another thread I could pull. I exported everything to my personal drive, time-stamped each file, documented every inconsistency. By 2 a.m., I had assembled the first real layer of evidence. It was solid. It was undeniable. I rehearsed my calm face for the next day, knowing I had insurance, had proof, had control. But fear came with it. What if he found out I was digging? What if this destroyed my career instead of his? The next morning, Sean sent a meeting invite. The subject line was vague and urgent. "Discussion, your role moving forward." My hands went cold. Did he know? Had someone told him I was looking into the financials? The meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. I had 6 hours to prepare for whatever was coming. I walked into his office at 2 p.m. His polished grin was sharp and confident. "We need to clarify your responsibilities," he said. The phrasing cut like a knife. "You've been struggling with the workload," he continued. "I think it's better if we redirect you to less critical projects." His words were carefully chosen to plant doubt. Incompetence. Failure. I nodded, silent. I let him believe he had control. That was the strategy, let him think he was winning. "I appreciate your effort," he said. "But maybe these high-stakes financials aren't your strength." He gestured to the door. The meeting was over. Whispers followed me down the hallway. I caught a junior associate glancing nervously at my laptop. My reputation was shifting. From reliable to unreliable. From capable to struggling. That evening, I returned to my desk to find a folder on top of my keyboard. It was labeled confidential and unsigned. My heart stopped. I opened it slowly. The memo was 1 page, typed on plain white paper. No letterhead. No signature. It detailed vague accusations about procedural oversight, tied to the error I corrected. No names but heavy insinuations. This memo was designed to circulate and poison the well. I made copies marking inconsistencies. Some errors referenced in this document were from before I even worked on those files. It was a setup. I didn't reply. I didn't confront Sean. I waited. Silence became my weapon. The next morning, Sean called a team meeting. He publicly praised another colleague for fixing the mistake I had originally flagged, crediting my junior colleague for solving it. Everyone applauded. And I sat there watching him smile, knowing exactly what he was doing. He was erasing me. Rewriting history. My hands shook under the table, but my face stayed calm. Patient. Waiting. I began tracking every move. Emails disappearing. Files being renamed. Approvals going missing. Sean's arrogance was showing cracks. He assumed I was too hurt to fight back. He didn't realize I was watching him constantly. I created a hidden spreadsheet tracking every claim Sean made versus every discrepancy in the records. The pattern was undeniable. This wasn't one mistake. This was systemic. This was fraud. Silence became my greatest weapon. While Sean thought he'd neutralized me, I was assembling an undeniable case. The team's trust began to shift. People were noticing the inconsistencies. Questions were being asked. Then I overheard a conversation. Sean was in a closed conference room with the financial controller. "We need to handle the next quarter more carefully," he was saying. "Make sure nothing gets flagged this time." He was planning an even bigger cover-up. And this time he knew someone was watching. He just didn't know it was me. Colleague approached me. Her name was Angela, and she worked in accounting. She had cautious questions in her eyes. "Did you see the budget adjustments in last month's report?" she asked, her eyes flicking toward Sean's office door. I nodded slowly, showing her nothing. Every person could be an ally or a spy. I needed to gauge her loyalty carefully. "The numbers don't match the original submissions," she said quietly. When I brought it up to Sean, he said they'd been revised and approved. But I can't find the approval signatures. I studied her face. She looked genuinely concerned. "I've noticed some inconsistencies too," I admitted. She glanced around. Then she dropped a hint that made my pulse quicken. "There's something from a few years ago. Something legal. Something serious. He wants it buried, and I think it's connected to what's happening now." My mind raced. Legal issues. Past incident. This was bigger than current fraud. "Thank you for telling me," I said. She nodded and walked away. The director's audit request came without warning. His email was formal and straightforward. "Comprehensive financial review of Q1 through Q3. Need full documentation and timeline. This is priority." Panic rippled subtly through the office. I felt it in the nervous energy at lunch, the sudden urgency in meetings, the way people stopped talking when I walked into rooms. But Sean smiled too broadly, overconfident, assuming the small errors would remain invisible to the director's trained eye. I knew different. I knew the discrepancies were documented, ready. I had prepared for this moment without even knowing it was coming. I spent that entire week rehearsing my answers. Not lying, never lying. Just being precise. Being careful. Being ready to present evidence if I was asked. The director wouldn't find anything by accident. But I could hand it to him if the moment was right. My boss was in a state I'd never seen before. He was trying to hide it, but his control was slipping. He was working late, pulling files, making phone calls behind closed office doors. He was panicking, even if he didn't want anyone to know it. I watched from my desk, calm and patient, waiting for the right moment to move. Then something happened that changed everything. A file appeared on my laptop, a file that Sean thought he had deleted months ago. The email history, the approval chain, the original numbers before they were altered. Everything. It was like a gift from the universe, or like someone on the inside wanted the truth out and knew I was the one who could expose it. I didn't question where it came from. I just added it to my folder, time-stamped and labeled. When the director asked for evidence, I would have more than he expected. And Sean would never be able to explain how those deleted files suddenly reappeared. He cornered me by the copier one afternoon. Just the two of us, machines humming around us, no one close enough to hear. "Just keep doing your job," he said, his smile tight and forced. "Don't worry about things above your pay grade." I didn't respond. I let him feel in control while my mind catalogued every word, every lie hidden in that statement. I noticed his foot tapping against the floor, a subtle sign of frustration, of stress, of fear. He was unraveling and he didn't even know it. I made a mental note. The cracks were widening. He handed me a report as he left, sliding it across the copier. "Just want you to be aware of the latest revisions," he said casually. Too casually. I looked at it. It was a manipulated version of the Q2 financial summary. Numbers adjusted. Dates changed. The same fraud, just packaged differently for the director's review. Kept my face neutral. "Thanks," I said. But I already had the original versions saved. Every version, every alteration, every attempt to hide the truth. And now I had this new manipulated copy too. Another piece of evidence. Another layer of his desperation. That night, I added it to the file and made 3 backups. One on a personal hard drive. One in cloud storage with encrypted access. One printed and locked in a drawer at home. If he somehow discovered my digital evidence, he couldn't destroy all of it. I was playing chess now and he was still playing checkers. He didn't even realize the game had started. I followed the paper trail meticulously, like a detective assembling a case for court. Every manipulated entry had a history. Every falsified approval had a pattern. Figures were rounded to hide losses. Emails were selectively forwarded to create false narratives. The deeper I dug, the more systematic it became. My spreadsheet grew into something powerful, a silent indictment of Sean's corruption. Each entry strengthened my position. Each connection made the case more undeniable. I wasn't speculating. I was proving. But then something unexpected happened. A financial clerk, a young guy named Aiden who worked in the back office, accidentally mentioned something in passing. We were both grabbing coffee, and he was stressed about an audit preparation meeting. "I've been looking for that approval email Sean asked me to send last year," he said, almost to himself. "But I didn't mean to send it. He told me to." He stopped mid-sentence, realizing he'd said too much. His face went red. I stayed calm, sipping my coffee like it was nothing. But internally I was vibrating. "What email?" I asked gently. He looked nervous, like he'd already said too much. "Never mind. I probably misunderstood. But I didn't push. I'd heard enough." That email contradicted Sean's entire story about how the discrepancies happened. It proved he'd deliberately instructed someone else to create false documentation. This wasn't negligence. This was deliberate fraud. I thanked Aiden for the coffee chat and walked away, my mind racing. This was the final piece. This was the moment the case became airtight. Whatever happened next, Sean was finished. He just didn't know it yet. I started sharing small, innocuous data with Sean, watching his reactions carefully. Nothing that would alert him, just routine updates about completed work. But I was studying him like a scientist studies a specimen under glass. A raised eyebrow when I mentioned cross-checking financial records. A stuttered response when I asked about approval processes. A nervous laugh that lasted just a second too long. Each reaction told me he underestimated my awareness. He still believed he was dictating the narrative. He didn't realize I'd already written the ending. I came to his office one afternoon with a simple question. "Hey, I'm confused about the Q2 approval chain. Can you walk me through how that works?" He went pale. Literally pale. Then he forced a smile and gave me a vague explanation that contradicted the documentation I had saved. Every word out of his mouth was another lie I could use against him. "Thanks," I said, standing to leave. "Just wanted to make sure I understood the process for the audit." I watched his face as I left. He knew something was wrong. He just couldn't figure out what. Later that week, a sudden all-hands meeting was called. Everyone gathered in the conference room, confused. Sean was on the agenda, and he looked confident, like he was about to announce a promotion or a success story. But then the director started asking him questions. Specific questions. About approvals. About discrepancies. About the files that had mysteriously gone missing and then reappeared. Sean's confidence cracked, right there in front of everyone. And I sat in the back, perfectly calm, knowing exactly what was about to happen. I spent my evenings connecting evidence points, creating a master timeline of lies versus facts. Each document corroborated the others. My spreadsheet became a narrative, the story of how Sean had systematically defrauded the company, covered it up, and tried to eliminate anyone who might notice. My patience was strategic. My calm face hid a storm of planning. I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. I was cold. I was unstoppable. Then I received an anonymous tip. An email from an account I didn't recognize with encrypted text. "Check the external communications from March. Everything you need is there." Someone on the inside wanted the truth out. Someone wanted Sean exposed. And they knew I was the one who could do it. I traced the external communications from March. And there it was. Emails between Sean and an external financial consultant, discussing how to adjust numbers, how to hide losses, how to create false documentation. It wasn't just fraud against the company. It was conspiracy, coordination, premeditation. This wasn't a mistake anymore. This was a crime. I didn't feel victorious. Felt heavy, tired, but also certain. The path forward was clear now. I knew exactly what I had to do, and I knew exactly how to do it. The anonymous tip confirmed the final key discrepancy I needed. I quietly compiled everything into a single, organized file. No commentary. No editorializing. Just evidence. Documentation. Then I forwarded it to the director with a simple message. "Thought you should have this for the audit." I didn't sign it with my name. I used my professional email, but I kept my tone neutral. Helpful. Not accusing. Just providing information. My boss noticed the director's sudden interest immediately. I watched it happen in real time. The director's questions became sharper. His emails more urgent. And Sean started subtly panicking, though he kept smiling in meetings. His hands shook slightly when he held his coffee. His eye contact became evasive. He knew something had changed. He just didn't know it was over. That same week, a confidential email was leaked to me. Someone forwarded it from the director's office, and it implicated Sean in more serious mismanagement than I'd even documented. Not just the current fraud, but historical incidents. Things that made the current situation look like just the tip of an iceberg. I added it to my file. At this point, I didn't even need it. I already had more than enough to destroy him. But this was confirmation. This was proof that he'd been doing this for years, and the company was finally waking up to it. The end was coming. I could feel it. I noticed the change in his body language first. During a budget review meeting, he was different. Defensive. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like fear. When I asked a simple question about an approval date, he snapped at me. Everyone heard it. Everyone saw it. The colleagues around the table exchanged nervous glances. This wasn't the polished Sean they knew. This was someone coming undone. He tried to intimidate me with indirect accusations. "Some people," he said, looking directly at me, "like to create problems where there aren't any. Some people like to make things more complicated than they need to be." I maintained my composure, offering silent questions that revealed contradictions in everything he said. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just asked clarifying questions that made his answers look worse and worse. Then he made a mistake. Crucial one. He inadvertently referenced a date that proved I was right all along. He said something happened in April, but the documentation I had clearly showed it happened in March. In front of everyone, his timeline fell apart. And the moment he said it, I saw him realize what he'd done. The silence in the room was deafening. He tried to correct himself, but it was too late. The seed of doubt was planted. Everyone in that room was now questioning him. And there was nothing he could do to stop it. An unexpected audit finding came down the next week. The director had discovered financial manipulation that went beyond the original error I'd corrected. It was worse than anyone thought. Discrepancies dating back years. Patterns of deliberate alteration. Evidence of conspiracy. Sean panicked. I watched it happen in real time. He started scrambling for explanations, calling meetings, trying to rewrite the narrative. His voice got higher. His hands got shakier. He was coming apart at the seams. I remained silent, watching him unravel without lifting a finger. I didn't have to do anything anymore. The evidence was speaking for itself. The director was digging deeper every day. And every hole Sean tried to fill just made things worse. Then he made a desperate move. He ordered an internal review of the same quarter, blind to the fact that I'd already submitted comprehensive evidence to the director. He was trying to control the narrative by creating his own investigation. It was too late. The director wasn't asking questions anymore. He was making accusations. And every accusation matched the evidence I'd provided. Sean's world was collapsing, and everyone could see it happening. I just sat at my desk and waited for the inevitable. A junior accountant came forward. Her name was Sophie, and she was nervous but truthful. She confirmed my timeline matched the original records perfectly, contradicting everything Sean had claimed about how the discrepancies happened. In a private meeting with the director, Sophie provided testimony that corroborated my evidence. She had been pressured to create false documentation. She had been instructed to hide approvals. She had been told to keep quiet about the discrepancies. And now she was telling the truth. Sean noticed her cooperation. I watched his face when he realized Sophie was talking to HR, to the director, to the internal audit team. His expression went cold. Angry. Desperate. He started making subtle threats. Nothing overt. Nothing that could be documented as harassment. Just small comments about how disloyal employees sometimes regretted their choices. How people who turned against their managers sometimes found themselves without good references. But I had documented everything. Every subtle threat. Every implied consequence. Every attempt at intimidation. I had been recording since the beginning, documenting this entire nightmare in a way that protected me and made him look worse. He was trying to threaten a witness. And I had proof of every word. Then Sean did something that sealed his fate. He tried to erase digital records before the director's official review. He thought he was being careful. He thought no one was watching. He was wrong. I documented every deleted file, every attempt at alteration, every desperate action he took. And I sent it all to the director with a message. Note: these deletions occurred after the audit request was issued. Panic was evident in his face when he realized what he'd done. He tried to destroy evidence. In front of the director. During an active investigation. The director's next move was inevitable. He called Sean into his office and asked point-blank, "Can you explain why critical financial files were deleted after we requested comprehensive documentation for this audit?" Sean had no answer. The evidence of the cover-up was undeniable. He'd tried to obstruct justice, and he'd done it clumsily, leaving a digital trail that even a novice could follow. That was the moment I knew for certain he was finished. Not just fired. Not just suspended. Finished. His career was over. His reputation was destroyed. And he had done it to himself. He called a team meeting, desperate now. I could see it in everything he did. He was trying to regain authority through fear. He made subtle digs at my character, whispered insinuations about my competence, my loyalty, my honesty. Some people, he said to the whole team, will do anything to get ahead. They'll create drama, manufacture problems, turn colleagues against you. You have to be careful who you trust in this office. Everyone understood he was talking about me. And everyone also understood that it didn't matter anymore. The fraud was proven. His threats were meaningless. I listened carefully, recording every word. His emotional manipulation was just more evidence. More proof of his character. More ammunition for what was coming. He was grasping at straws, and everyone could see it. That night, I received a copy of his personal notes. They detailed his plan to discredit me further, to blame me for the financial discrepancies, to paint me as unstable and unreliable. Someone on his team, maybe Sophie, maybe Angela, maybe someone else, had copied his notes and sent them to me. The circle was complete. Everyone was turning against him. Not because I had asked them to. Not because I had organized some conspiracy. But because they all saw the truth now. Sean was corrupt. And I was the one who had exposed it. I found emails linking Sean to an external financial consultant. They discussed which numbers to adjust, how to hide the adjustments, how to create false documentation. The consultant was being paid from company funds through a shell account. Sean was essentially stealing company money to pay someone to help him commit fraud. It was worse than anyone had realized. It wasn't just career-ending. It was criminal-level bad. This was wire fraud. This was conspiracy. This was embezzlement. His arrogance had blinded him to the entire scope of my investigation. He had no idea how much evidence I had, how many different angles of fraud I documented, how completely and totally he was finished. He scheduled a one-on-one with the director, probably thinking he could talk his way out of this. He didn't know that I'd already submitted proof of the emails. He didn't know that the director had stopped believing anything he said 3 weeks ago. When he walked into that meeting, he was walking into his own ending. And he still thought he had a chance to save himself. I cross-checked all of Sean's external communications with his internal memos. The inconsistencies were absolutely undeniable. He had told different people different stories. He had created false narratives internally while coordinating actual fraud externally. He had documented his own crimes in emails he thought were private. I prepared a single, concise file for the director. Everything organized. Everything referenced. Everything proven. I wasn't playing a game anymore. I was executing a plan that had been building for months. My boss noticed me working late, hunched over my laptop. I could see the suspicion in his eyes. He knew something was coming. He could feel it. But he couldn't access the proof. He couldn't stop what was already in motion. He tried to ask me directly what I was working on. I smiled and said, just audit preparation stuff, making sure everything's organized. He didn't believe me, but there was nothing he could do about it. The director's questions became pointed and relentless. Sean started sweating, answering evasively, contradicting himself repeatedly. Silence was my ally. I simply handed over documentation when requested, letting the evidence speak for itself. The director was assembling a case. He was interviewing everyone. He was reviewing every transaction. And with each new discovery, Sean's position became more and more impossible. Then Sean made a final desperate move. He tried to shift blame to a colleague. He must have altered the records without my knowledge, Sean claimed. I was just signing off on what I was given. The director looked at the evidence I'd provided. The emails where Sean explicitly instructed people to make the alterations. The messages where he coordinated the fraud. The proof that this was his plan, his execution, his crime. That's not what the evidence shows, the director said coldly. Sean's face went gray. He realized in that moment that he had run out of lies. He tried everything. He attempted to bribe me in a private conversation, offering to ensure I got a promotion if I would stop cooperating with the investigation. I refused calmly and clearly. Then he tried intimidation. "You don't want to go down this road," he said. "You have no idea what you're doing, and you're going to regret this." I reported the bribery attempt and the threat to the director immediately. Every failed attempt was another record, another piece of evidence, another example of his criminal behavior. He left a threatening note on my desk one afternoon. "Stop digging or you'll be sorry." I photographed it immediately with the timestamp visible. I didn't touch it after that. I just left it there as evidence. His desperation had become pathetic, and everyone could see it. The director assembled a formal review meeting. He invited me, Sean, HR, and several members of the leadership team. This was it. This was the moment everything came into the light. I presented a timeline first. Clear, organized, undeniable. When Sean made what error, when he instructed others to falsify documents, when he covered it up, when he tried to destroy evidence, when he attempted to intimidate witnesses. Then I presented documents, original files, altered files, email chains proving coordination and intent, witness statements from Sophie and Angela and Aiden. Sean's lies unraveled in real time, right there in front of everyone. His arrogance was gone. His confidence was gone. His ability to control the narrative was gone. He was frozen in shock, watching his entire career collapse in the span of an hour. The leadership team didn't ask questions. The evidence was overwhelming. The case was airtight. Sean had no defense that would stand up to the documentation I'd provided. HR recommended immediate disciplinary action. The director confronted Sean directly, listing fraud, mismanagement, deception, obstruction of justice, witness intimidation, bribery attempts. It was an overwhelming list of crimes. Sean tried to defend himself. "I was just trying to protect the company," he said weakly. "I thought the adjustments were necessary." But every claim, every excuse, every attempt at justification was directly contradicted by evidence. The emails proved it. The documents proved it. The timeline proved it. There was no defense. There was no explanation. There was only the undeniable fact of his guilt. He was suspended immediately, pending a full investigation and potential criminal charges. The office whispers shifted in my favor overnight. People who had avoided me started approaching me with apologies. People who had believed his lies started asking questions. The narrative had completely reversed. I had won, not through revenge, not through cruelty, but through patience, intelligence, and truth. I returned to my desk the next morning, calm and composed. The stress that had been sitting on my shoulders for months began to fade, replaced by clarity and peace. I had done what needed to be done. Justice had been served, legally and completely. The director approached me privately and thanked me. Not just for my diligence in uncovering the fraud, but for my restraint, for not spreading rumors, for not taking this public, for handling it with intelligence and integrity. "This took courage," he said, "and wisdom. Thank you." I nodded, accepting his gratitude. My reputation had been restored. My job was secure. And the corrupt man who had tried to destroy me was facing criminal charges. I looked at the calendar on my desk. The next quarter was beginning. And this time it would be mine. On my terms. With people I could trust. In an office that had finally been cleansed of the poison that had infected it. The lesson was silent but irreversible. Arrogance and lies crumble under quiet, methodical truth. Patience is a weapon. Silence is power. And sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply letting the truth speak for itself. I opened a fresh spreadsheet and got back to work. The fraud was exposed. The guilty were punished. And I had learned that I was stronger than I ever knew.